السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أحييكم من مقر وزارة الخارجية في مملكة السويد، وأرحب بكم في حلقة جديدة من برنامج بلاحدود. تعتبر وزيرة الخارجية السويدية مارغوت والستروم أحد أبرز أعضاء حكومة الحزب الاشتراكي الديمقراطي الذي يحكم السويد الآن، وقد عرفت بتصريحاتها المثيرة لا سيما ضد إسرائيل وسياستها الاستيطانية وممارساتها ضد شعب فلسطين. وكان أول قرار سعت إليه السويد خلال رئاستها لمجلس الأمن في شهر يناير الماضي هو استصدار قرار من مجلس الأمن يجرم بناء المستوطنات الإسرائيلية
to criminalize building settlements in Palestine and also in investigating the killing of Palestinians in the Al-Aqsa uprising or Intifada. Also, Sweden was well known of absorbing more than 200,000 refugees, even though its population does not exceed 10 million. And with those positive attitude, there is criticism of Sweden, and we will try to discuss these issues with the Swedish Foreign Minister Margot Wallström. Sweden is in the uppermost edge of Europe, and Ahmed is stating the borders. The capital is Stockholm, and he is given the area. The population is almost 10 million people, and it is ruled by a constitutional monarchy. The currency is Corona, even though it is a member of the EU. Its people speak Swedish with other languages. Thank you and welcome to the program.
Shukran, and welcome to Stockholm and Sweden and to the Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Thank you indeed. Sweden last year achieved a seat in the UN Security Council, and it started its membership for 2 years in January. What is the benefit of your membership in the UN Security Council if the big countries, major states, use the veto against anyone who issues resolutions against their own interests?
We, of course, are very proud to be serving on the Security Council for 2 years as a non-permanent member. And we saw the majority of votes that we got as a sign of confidence in Sweden and also in our foreign policy. We believe that the priority for the Security Council must be conflict prevention, much more than in previous days. We also believe that we have to give a new Secretary General the best possibilities to work with and within the Security Council. And we also believe that we have to reform the way the Security Council works. It has to become more open and transparent, it has to become more effective, and it has to become more representative. So the composition of the Security Council must change, and also the use of the veto must change as well. And this is what we are working for, in addition to making sure that we ask the question, where are the women in, for example, the whole issue of peace and security?
What are the reforms that are fundamental that you seek to achieve them through your membership in the Security Council, so that the Security Council would become more effective and it would not be a tool in the hands of major powers?
We have joined a group of member states, a rather big group of member states that are now working to restrict the use of the veto. For example, in situations that could lead to crimes against humanity, to genocide, or similar types of situations. And we think that that would be one step on the way to actually abandon the whole use of the veto. We are realistic. We know that this will not be done in a very short period of time, but we think that this is what has to happen also to turn the Security Council and the United Nations into a more legitimate and representative body, and the most important body of the United Nations.
Your Excellency, do you believe or do you not believe that the United Nations now is an obsolete organization, helping only the major powers who established it after the Second World War and serving their interests, and that there should be an umbrella of the UN that's more humane, more just than the UN?
I believe that the Security Council has its problems, but it's the one body that we have today that can represent all the countries on this planet, that can make sure that there are peacekeeping operations in 17 countries around the world as it is today, that can send humanitarian assistance, that can work protecting the rights of the child, that can work in making sure that there is development and education around the world through the whole range of UN bodies and organizations. But it also has its shortcomings, and that is very much thanks to a system of giving a veto to a few member states, and based on an order, a world order that is now obsolete. But we don't have any other body of this kind, and of course the Security Council also has its victories and its results, but also its shortcomings, and we have to continue to address that, and we have to contribute to turning the Security Council into that decisive body that we need it to be.
In 16 December, there was a conference convened here in Stockholm to establish for a network of women who will play the mediation role in international conflicts, and you push forward to give women a role at the United Nations level that's bigger than their current role. Why do you seek to engage women to do roles that are hard for even men, that are hard for men even to do or to achieve success in them?
It's a good and a relevant question, because we know from history that when women are engaged, and remember, they represent half of the world's population, when women are engaged, and you can look at any war-torn part of this world, if half of the population is not engaged in negotiating peace, being given the voices around the negotiating table, then peace won't last as long. You won't have all the options on the table for a negotiation or a mediation, and the peace won't last as long. So we have good experience from the Women, Peace and Security agenda and the resolutions that have been passed by the Security Council, and we need to use that experience and engage women. And I am sure you know from your own experience the role of women in any society. And I think this is the unfinished business of our time, to make sure that both women and men can play fully their respective roles in the peace and security order now and in the future.
You always criticize the policies of Israel, especially regarding settlements, besieging Gaza. Then you have become a persona non grata in Israel. They accused you of anti-Semitism. They described your statements as shocking and even rude. So why Sweden takes on this position, which is not taken up by other European countries vis-à-vis Israel?
It was almost 2.5 years ago that the Swedish government decided to recognize the state of Palestine. We knew that this would also be controversial, but we stand for it. We think that this is one step on the way to a two-state solution. It's a way to make the parties a little less unequal. It is a way to give hope to young people that they can live in a two-state solution side by side, Israel and Palestine, in free and independent and secure countries and safe countries. And it was a way to give energy into the two-state solution and show that we still believe in and hold on to that idea. And we think that this is the way forward. And this is also what the European Union advocates and, of course, what the Security Council advocates. So we take responsibility for this decision, and I leave it to others to say and think what they want, but we will continue to work constructively with both Israel and Palestine to make sure that we move towards a two-state solution. It requires mutual respect.
Do you believe that the facts of the current policies will allow to reach a two-state solution, even though Israel and Slavists are rejecting this solution worldwide?
Unfortunately, I can see that the two-state solution is fading away. And I believe that we have to do everything to safeguard what is now as I see, the only option. I haven't seen any alternatives to a two-state solution other than more insecurity for Israel, more violence, or the risk of also taking away all the hope from Palestinians. And I don't want to contribute to that. I think we have to continue to work for a two-state solution and then insist on both parties not doing things that will prevent this from being realized. And of course, the settlement is clearly a part of that. You must refrain from doing more of settlements if this is to become a realistic vision for the future. And that is what we will continue to work on tirelessly, also from the Swedish side, together with other parties.
What about besieging the Palestinians in Gaza? What about the killing operations in Jerusalem?
Yeah. No, there are so many problems and obstacles on the way, and we think that you have to act in accordance with the idea of moving towards a two-state solution. And we are behind also, and this is the EU policy, to say refrain from actions that will bring any two-state solution further away from the ambition that we have today.
The far-right extremist lobby in Sweden, led by the Committee to Combat Anti-Semitism, attacked you harshly. They called on you to resign. What's the influence of the far-right lobby in Sweden on the performance of the government?
You know, we have a clear policy for foreign affairs. We have a declaration of this government for what we do also domestically. And we will follow it through. We do it by consulting civil society, the other parties. We have to work with the other parties since we have a difficult parliamentary situation, and work in an open and transparent way about what we think and what is our policies. And I think that this is the only way that we can deal also with the more extremist positions that exist in Europe and here in Sweden. And I think we have to build a policy and construct a policy that actually makes the differences between groups of people smaller, and that we sort of build bridges between people in our country, create the best conditions for having an education, for being integrated in society, for getting a job. That's the best thing we can do to build a prosperous future for all our citizens.
How do you view, or your government, how does your government view the strength of the far-right extremism in Europe, and how they impact the politics, and also getting a lot of support in the elections?
We are extremely worried about the situation where we see extremist movements, also violent extremism, spreading in Europe, where populism, protectionism, all of these isms are gaining ground in Europe, in political life. And I think it makes it the more important that those of us who represent democratic political movements also stick together, stay united in fighting racism and fascism and Nazism and all of those tendencies that we see, unfortunately, around Europe, and argue and advocate for tolerance and openness and diversity in our societies, because this is what will make us stronger for the future. And then we have to struggle with all the challenges that come from a society that has changed dramatically in a rather short period of time, because we have also received so many refugees to our country. But I believe that they make us richer, they make us a better country, and they are clearly an asset to us. But we have to make sure that there are resources for education, for jobs, for taking care of not least children and young people who come from different parts of the world.
But your government encourages or deals with weakness with the far right. In 2009, intelligence in Sweden, SABO, described the organization of resistance in the north as a violent movement. In 21 April, this organization, which is Nazi and racist, it was given by, or it convened a meeting in Gotland Island. Wasn't that given legitimacy to a far-right organization when they participate in such a conference, so that they will have official existence in the country?
It's very important that our police, that our security service also works in preventing these movements from gaining ground and members in Sweden, and to keep an eye on all of these movements that are extremists, whether they are on the right side or the left side, or if they are violent, represent violent extremism. And I think that we will have to make sure that the police and all those working on these issues have the resources they need. And this is an ongoing work, again, in a society that sees new challenges and new problems arise, but we have to deal with them and face them.
The Muslims in Sweden were a role model in the whole world, that they are citizens, they are Swedish citizens, getting all their rights and privileges as citizens. There's no discrimination between them and other people in this society. Now, since 2 years, the policy of our government has changed towards the Muslims. Muslims now feel fear. Reports are issued against them. Legislations are issued against them. The media attacks them. The government issues legislations against them. So why the policy of our government towards Muslims has changed, even though they represent 8 to 10% of the total population?
No, I think that what we see is fear from a situation where we have also here in Stockholm recently experienced extremist violence and also a terrorist attack. And I think it's, in one way, it is natural that people ask questions, what will happen to our society if there is a very sort of rapid and dramatic change of also the population and newcomers to Sweden. What do we know about them, and how are we going to deal with all of these challenges? That's a natural thing, and very important that the government stays calm, that we address all of these both problems and challenges and opportunities that this gives us. I would say that there is no discrimination in legislation when it comes to Muslims, but we have a practical challenge and a practical situation that we have to deal with that involves also integration and giving possibilities to all of those who come here as new citizens to Sweden. And then we have to work on the whole side of fighting prejudice and ignorance and all of those things that build up the emotions against a certain group, be it Muslims or be it people with a different color of their skin or something else. This is a constant work that we have to do. And we believe in diversity, and we think it makes us richer and better as a country.
When there is almost 800,000 to 1 million Muslims, and 10 of them or 100 or 1,000 are bad. So the media now is describing all Muslims as terrorists, that they are dangerous, they are a threat. Muslims now are afraid as a result. So why dealing with Muslims in this way, and now all Muslims are afraid in Sweden?
I think that this is I hope not all Muslims are afraid, but I think they experience that there is a backlash when we see these kind of terrorist attacks being committed in Sweden as well. It creates a fear, and what we have to do is to make sure that there is integration policies and programs that allow people to have an education, to find a role for themselves, to have a job, to find meeting places, to show also those who have lived here for generations that we are all humans and we have to live together and learn to live together. So tolerance and diversity is the answer to these things, but also practical policies that will help people to be integrated. So I think that is the best answer, but we have to discuss these things, and we have to realize that we have to create better knowledge about also what it is to be a Muslim, or about Islam, and fight any Islamophobia or other prejudice against them.
But the media here is unjust. The media here attacks Muslims, distorts their image. Hollande, French president, Monday warned that the far right would destroy social peace in Europe. Aren't you afraid that the far right and the media controlled by them are destroying social peace in Sweden?
I think it's more of a problem of social media than it is of the established media in Sweden. I think we have good media here. We have good public service, we have good reporting by major newspapers and others. But of course, we also see that these voices are being heard, and I think maybe more in the extremist part of political life and also on social media. And we always have to make sure that we fight fake news or that we fight those extremist expressions of their sort of free speech in Sweden as well. And be very vigilant, because don't think we should allow hatred or misogyny or other expressions of extremism in our media.
Muslims accuse the government now of bad intention when the Justice Minister has called on 3 far-right authors or writers to put a report about Islamic Muslim Brotherhood. They accuse the Muslims in Sweden that they are terrorists, want to have a parallel society, and this has raised controversy where there are 20 researchers in Sweden replied and answered that. So the behavior of the government to call on far-right authors and writers to write a report about Muslims, even though they are well known of their hatred to Muslims, doesn't that mean that the government is succumbing to the far-right and it is unjust to its view and consideration of the Muslim citizens?
I think the Minister of Justice can answer for himself, and I don't know enough about this conversation or this debate to comment. Yeah, but I don't know anything about that report. I think we always have to...
This is a report that has raised a lot of controversy in Sweden, so it is believed that you have information about it, because many researchers and intellectuals in Sweden have said that these far-right authors and writers are trying to destroy the Swedish society. They stood against them.
Yeah, I think we have to look out for all extremism. And I think it's really, as somebody said, you know, it's not a fight between Islam and Christianity, it's not between North and South, it is not between civilizations, it's between the fanatics and the rest of us. I think we always have to look out for fanatics and keep them at rest.
People did not forget your tears when you shed your tears when you commented about the the Syrian child who drowned, but the crisis of refugees has exposed many countries in Europe who stood against them. Sweden had an honorable position. You have received more than 200,000 refugees. Many of those refugees are not unemployed. Many of them doctors, scientists, and they can contribute in building the Swedish society. Despite that, you do not benefit from them, and you deal with them all as if they are refugees who just want to eat and drink. Why don't you try to benefit from those refugees, just like Germany did when Merkel announced that she knows she has hosted people who will add value to the German society? You in Sweden did not benefit yet.
We have nothing to be ashamed of. We have received proportionally more than any OECD country when it comes to welcoming refugees to this country. We believed from the very beginning that this would also be a common responsibility between EU countries, and I would say global responsibility. That did not turn out to be the case, and we are still struggling with that issue of having a shared responsibility within the European Union. It is not reasonable that one country receives 30% of all of the unaccompanied children that came to Europe came to Sweden. So it means in the end that we cannot give them all the possibilities and the rights that we want them to have when they come to our country. At every level, locally, in our municipalities, at the government level, at regional level, people are every day struggling to do exactly what you say, to make sure that there is a validation of what people know and what they can do and their professions when they come, so that we can get them out there into a job or an education as quickly as possible. But in many small municipalities, this meant that they have to build new schools and find new teachers or make sure that there are houses for these people, because we want to give them the same rights. And of course, you cannot do that from one day to another. And this is what is still the challenge for the Swedish society and what we are still investing in, to make sure that we can use to the full also all those who come to us as refugees. And I don't see that we have anything to be ashamed of. And I know all of these people at the local level that have been fantastic and shown enormous generosity towards the refugees and are helping them, bringing them into their own homes, trying to help in every way. But those who do not have the right to asylum in our country, they also have to leave. That's the rules. Otherwise, we would have free immigration, and that is not our policy, because we want to live up also to the obligation to take full responsibility for the refugees.
Are you now reassuring all Muslims and refugees here who have fears and concerns from the far right and from the changing of the policies of the government that Swedish citizens, irrespective of their color or religion, would have full rights and enjoy them just like a white Swedish person equally?
I can assure everyone that the government does everything we can to make sure that people enjoy the rights that they should enjoy when they come to Sweden as refugees, that we respect international legislation and laws and conventions, and that we also work tirelessly to make sure that we can live up to our obligation to give people a chance to get an education or a job and to be well integrated into our society. I cannot answer for extremists that unfortunately also exist and have a base in Sweden. We can only do what we can politically to make sure that we reveal sometimes their lies and their myths and their methods to make sure that people shouldn't have to live in fear for their lives or their security, or being also the victim of so much prejudice. We are doing everything we can.
I asked you this question because from more than 500 questions I received from the viewers, many of them who live in Sweden show that they are concerned and afraid of the changes in the government. That's why I asked you. In official statement in 19 April, and commenting on the referendum results in Turkey, you criticized harshly the referendum result in Turkey, and you said the result of the referendum is a setback. Why do you interfere in the policy of the Turkish people and their freedom of choice to the system that they choose?
No, we don't interfere in any other country's elections. They had a referendum, and of course we must be able to criticize if we see that there could be flaws in the whole process, and then it is also our right to point that out. But it is for the people of Turkey to say, to show what they want in a referendum, and we have to respect, of course, the outcome. We are one of the most staunch proponents of an EU accession process in Turkey. We have always supported Turkey and Turkey's coming closer to the European Union. But it also means that for a number of years, we saw a good development, reform efforts in Turkey, and unfortunately, a lot of this has been lost over the last period and the last, I would say, a year back. this is very worrisome. And when they even start to talk about the death penalty, we know that this would be put an end to any attempt to become a member of the European Union, or even put a close to the negotiations that have been going on. And I think that would be unfortunate. I am hoping that all those that want to cooperate with Europe also see that we have so much in common, and common interests in everything from the economy to handling the refugee crisis.
Europe has almost consensus on attacking President Erdogan during the past time, and Turkey. Erdogan was my guest on this program last week, and he confirmed that you Europeans accuse him and you are racists, Nazis, Christian view toward Turkey. What do you say?
I don't think it helps. Calling each other these names. I think you have to be very concrete and say what we think must change. You cannot put in prison thousands and thousands of journalists or the opposition politicians or local mayors and believe that we would sit quietly and look at this. We think that it would be a very good and important step to take up negotiations again with the Kurds, and
these worked against the state.
With the Kurds.
When somebody works against the national security of Sweden, would you allow them, or he will be turned into the court? When some military commit a coup d'etat against the monarchy, will they be left to do that, or will they be turned to justice?
That all of these journalists are enemies of the state or were engaged in the coup. That he
there is a trial taking place now.
Also, the opposition, the leaders of the opposition, and I think that this remains to be seen. And it has to be proportionate, it has to be according to international law. And that's all we ask for. And of course, to even start a debate about reintroducing the death penalty is a red line for the European Union.
How do you view the future of the relations of the EU and Sweden and and Turkey in light of the criticism exchanged by both, and Erdogan announcing last week on this program that he will not return relations to Turkey with Europe until the Europeans apologize for the statements that they have said about Turkey?
We are interested in keeping up a constructive dialogue. We need to do that. We need to be in contact. Turkey is geopolitically a very important, important country. And we need each other. We need each other also for trade and economic exchange. We need each other to solve problems that today are not confined within national borders, but require that we talk to each other and that we try to solve problems. And remember that even respecting the figures and the outcome of the referendum, Turkey is a deeply divided country. It is divided into two. And how do you bridge that? How do you overcome that? How do you create a prosperous future for all the people in Turkey?
And the British people also are divided into two. You here are divided into two camps. When you had the referendum, a referendum for the remaining of the Corona and the Euro, also the Brits were divided into two during the Brexit. This is democracy. It's natural. Why do you accept its result in your country and you refuse its result when it is used in different countries?
No, but it is a problem also in the UK, that they are divided, that the country is divided into two halves, and it will live on for generations if you arrange referendums on those conditions. So it is problematic also for the UK that a referendum divided the country so clearly, but it is definitely a problem for for Turkey, and it is, of course, in combination with the attempted coup and everything that happened, the security situation, this makes it a very challenging and dangerous situation. And we are hoping that resumed negotiations with the Kurds, that resumed reform efforts for the country, moving it into a democratic direction, and also making sure that the opposition can have a voice and that we can talk to each other. That is what I would like to see with our relation to Turkey, and we've always defended them also for their EU accession process. And I'm still hoping we can come back to a situation where we have a constructive dialogue.
Erdogan accused Europe that they did not fulfill their commitments in terms of the refugees. What do you expect from Europe if Erdogan opens the door wide open for refugees to come back again to Europe?
I don't think that this will happen. I think that we will be able, they have worked constructively with Europe and the European Union on trying to deal with the refugee situation. And I think we have to give them all the credit they deserve for having received so many refugees into Turkey, really doing their best also to make sure that they can take on jobs, that they can have opportunities in Turkey. I think this is clearly something that they have worked intensively with under very challenging conditions. So we hope that we can continue to address these problems together with Turkey.
After 100 days of the Trump administration assuming its responsibility, how do you view the future of the United States in light of Trump presidency, in light of the vagueness and his statements about Sweden and the confusion that we see in the American politics?
Well, I think it's too early to know exactly where the United States of America are moving, or to know exactly their policies on foreign affairs, for example. But we have decided that we will at least provide them with all the background and the facts and the knowledge about the situation here, and also establish good contacts with the US and with the new administration, because we are, as with Turkey, we are dependent on having the transatlantic link functioning well. So we are interested in making sure that we can also speak to each other, although we might not be exactly on the same position on a number of issues.
How do you view the future of your relations with Russia in light of the issue of spying and media activities that you have discovered lately?
Well, with Russia, I think we have to have sort of two time perspectives, and we have to be very consistent in our policy and our reaction towards Russia when it comes to the illegal annexation of Crimea and also the Russian aggression in eastern Ukraine. And the fact that we have taken a decision on sanctions against Russia, we will hold on to that policy. And it's clearly linked, and the conditions are clarified. But we also will keep Russia as a big and powerful neighbor in the future, and we have to make sure that we create a people-to-people contact, and that we can also have a respectful dialogue. And I have myself visited Moscow, and my colleague Sergei Lavrov, and I think that we can talk directly to each other. And we can, despite the differences, we can also talk directly to each other, and we appreciate that. And we also want to see more of these people-to-people contacts. And we, of course, want to see Russia that also moves in the democratic direction and be able to have normal relations with them.
You are a mother and a grandmother, and you have an appointment now with your children and grandchildren. I don't want to take you away from your dinner with them, so thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
How can you combine being a mother and a grandmother and the hard work in the foreign ministry?
I'm afraid
This is a personal question, but allow me to finish with it after
I
this harsh political dialogue.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, and thank you for coming here and also for giving me the opportunity to answer to all your questions. I wish I could have answered directly to all the 500 people that contacted you. And thank you for the personal question. We are also human beings, and I'm a grandmother and I have 2 grandchildren, and of course I wish I could spend more time with them. But I'm also proud over my job. I'm proud to be the Foreign Minister of Sweden. I'm proud of the policies that we represent. I'm proud to be able to say to them that I'm fighting to create a better world also for them. So thank you very much, shukran, and welcome back.
Thank you very much for being with us, and I hope that you will give my greetings to your family. And I thank the viewers for following this program. And we come to the conclusion of this program. This is Ahmed Mansour greeting you from Stockholm. Peace be upon you all. And peace be upon you too. Thank you.